What is going on, everybody? The Red Sun is going on vacation for a little bit. He is given some control over to me, and I will be taking over for a good chunk of the future. He seems like he's been doing well, and you're probably here wondering about what this next review of mine is. This one is going to be about let's just say an older one. The animation style definitely seems like it's older, but it also has some, let's just say mid-2000s look to it. Not necessarily 90s, but definitely older. This one is going to be called Miboujin Nikki. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yes, I have my script right beneath me. Now, this little lady is done by Pink Pineapple and is around 22-ish minutes long. Some notable tags in it are harem, MILF, and vanilla, of which I feel as though harem is not exactly earned in this, given the fact that, yes, he does live with a very attractive lady, but the only other time you see a lady in this is later on, and she's only in it for less than 2 minutes. So I wouldn't really consider that worthy. And if you're wondering, yes, I am doing vanilla for, I think, what was it, 2 videos in a row? Vanilla has its place. You can say what you want, I'm sticking with it. Yeah, I do plan to branch out in just a little bit, but I might as well get this out of my system now that I'm back. And let's get into it. This little beauty has 8 categories, so it's not exactly the most diverse and can't exactly pull in the most amount of people, but sometimes that's better. Knowing your audience is better than pandering to every audience and doing it badly. This little baby is also known for being an adaptation of a video game. And you can probably guess what it is. It's definitely one of the more visual novel-esque. Yes. Now, this one itself goes along a very simple premise. The main character himself is he's a friend of the main love interest, the female in the equation. The female in the equation has had a little bit of a rough time. Her husband died around 4 years prior to the beginning of this incident, and she still holds out a flame for the character, giving her deceit, her widowment, and as an excuse to stay single, to try to hold on for what that is, kind of keep an artificial distance away from the main character of the whole thing. Which really, she has more depth than the main character, so you can make an argument for her being the main character in this, but I digress. Now, along with this, she continues to live with the man as he thinks it's his job to guard her, to make sure that she's safe, that bad things don't really come to her as often, which I can understand. And it's a little bit of a creepy thing if you don't get their permission, but she seems perfectly fine with it, and seems to have an attraction with him. You can almost feel the tension in the first few minutes of this, which is very well warranted, as they kind of decide to have a meal together after a long amount of time, and she drinks for the first time, in which case she gets a little bit tipsy, the guy is still very much sober, and she comes on to him, in which case, let me get out my notes so that I don't start spouting off any false information now. Leads into the first quote-unquote scene of the whole thing at 4 minutes and 50 seconds in, and lasts for a little over 6 minutes at the 11-minute and 5-second mark. Decent size when it comes to it, but there are a few notes I'd like to bring in. Unlike the last one that we did, Kimigasuki, there aren't as many problems in the scene. There's no looping of audio or visuals. They linger on scenes just long enough to where you can get a good view of each one, and you don't have to sit and listen to the same moans over and over and over. I mean, if you like the moans, that's cool, but hearing the same voice file repeat for 20 seconds and then move on to a different shot of the same scene is a little weird. Now, then it moves into a few other notes that I have. The scene does not linger, and it has a semi-wide variety of angles and positions that the characters are viewed and using throughout the entire thing. So you would consider them... they're making the most of what they have. Given the fact that they are going along with vanilla, and the only one that they can have that's out of the normal range is MILF, which, to be fair, she doesn't look all that old. She definitely still qualifies. She has certain figure changes that would require a more mature woman, and I'll say it earns the tag. Now let's go on to the next portion. Now, after the scene goes in and ends, it then leads to the next day. She's rather cold towards him while he starts to tell her about how much he loves her and wants to continue being with her. To which case, she responds in her most sober way possible, saying that was a one-night stand. I still hold out my love for my deceased husband. To which case, he tries to argue, "Ooh, but it's been so long and I love you so much," leading to her saying it's time for you to go to work. In which case, he does. And then it leads into a rather odd scene altogether. It moves into him at his job, reminiscing about the whole thing, which is where you get the whole scene of him talking to her. And then it leads into his boss showing up, dressed as you would suspect, the only other female in the entire thing. She shows up, and then acts lewd towards him, and then continues to make advances towards him, to which case she unzips him and then uses everything above the collarbone. So neck and up for all of, what did I put here? From 12:40 to 13:35. That's not even a minute. That's 55 seconds, and that's generous, because I like to use it at the 5-second intervals. That just feels weird, doesn't it? Because she goes in and starts to do something, and before anybody finishes throughout the entire thing, he gets up and says, I gotta go, as his phone rings, and it's her, the recent widow. And he bolts. He just gets the fuck out of there. Which, it seems more or less like it was meant to be an actual, hot scene, and was more as a framing device for the actual relationship that he's trying to build with her. He wants to show that he's faithful and will be by her side, regardless of what's going on. He holds no acquaintance for these random women. He is a one-man girl. He's a one-girl man. Even though he did get a little bit done and then bolted I'm not even going to try to go on that. I don't know how I explain that. He gets a call and quickly leaves. This then leads to them, or her, inviting him for dinner again, trying to discuss what had gone through. He then continues on with dinner as normal, similar to what had happened in the first time, and then leads to him drinking profusely enough to get himself drunk, in which case he then confesses his undying love for this person that he's tried to keep safe for these 4 years, to make sure that she's still safe and emotionally well off after her husband had died, in which case he begins to pass out, leading to the fact that he wants to see her happy like she was before, and also in other things like she was before, like a uniform when she was a server at a restaurant, which is a little bit of an odd request given the fact that you said, I love you, I want to be with you, I'm so glad I got to be with you, put on the waitress outfit. There's a step there that could have been taken before that. Leading into the next scene, which lasts from 1530 to 2030. Essentially, when 2030 hits, that's when the credits start to roll. Which is okay. And 1530 to 20... Actually, nope. I take that back. From 1530 to 2030, There's an odd moment in it where they are going at it for like a good 3.5 minutes. There's a cut to black, and then in the final minute or two of it, it then goes to another scene that's not separate from the first one. Like, they cut to black as if it was ending, and then they move on to the next thing. Like, what the fuck? What was that for? I'm not gonna try to analyze it. After it fades to black, it comes back, they get back together, and then it moves on to the next day where he's ready to leave for work. She says his name, and he says, "It's fucking go time," and then closes the door, runs back to her, and they immediately start going at it on the floor. Jesus Christ, dude. I don't think game works at that level. In which case, it really only lasts for 20 seconds, and then it goes to black. And then the credits roll. Why was that last one there? Is it just to show that they're now in a really loving relationship where they'll actually, like, go at it with each other? I'm not here to judge. But, damn. Must really like each other. I mean, you forgot all about your dead husband. Husband, you done moved on. Well, it has been 4 years. But you moved on pretty quickly from it being a reason to not get together, and then suddenly bursting into just another guy. Alright. Well, now that we're at the end of the episode, given the fact that there is only one episode, trust me, I checked, and I'm guessing the video game itself wasn't as long either. I haven't played it, but I'm assuming it's very similar, maybe with some diverging paths or a little bit later portions of it. But now that we're on to the end of the episode, let's get to the rankings of it, now that we're actually doing pretty good on time. The characters themselves, they're few, but they have good chemistry. The two shortest, quote, scenes in the entire thing, where two people get together, are really there more for framing how their relationship is progressing. Their first one was a shaky relationship where he himself wasn't exactly experienced in the ways of women in the world, and it's very accurately conveyed, and it's kind of conveyed the same way like an 18 or 19-year-old would have sex for the first time. Kind of the whole thing about, I'm not very experienced, but I've definitely watched enough videos to have a few tips. It's a little bit weird when I try to phrase it like that, but trust me. Some things do transfer from videos. Now, number two, actually, after giving away that they have good chemistry, I'd say they have a 7 out of 10 when it comes to characters. They're very simple, given the fact that it is one episode, but you see that the way that the sex progresses throughout the entire thing, they actually do work together pretty well, and I'd like to commend them for that. 7 out of 10. Now, to the animation. It is very much an older style of animation where the lines are a bit heavier and the movement isn't as well put together. You can definitely tell this wasn't made with a huge budget, but they did work well with the budgets. The mouths may not move along with the voices all that much, but that's a minor complaint in the most. Given the fact that they don't really have tons of joint movement throughout the whole thing, it's really it really goes into scenes in between it where they move in a certain way, shift slightly, and then continue to move in a certain way. Hey, I've seen much better, but this is definitely above passable. I'll give it, the animation itself, a 6 out of 10. There is no looping, and that is a godsend. Because I can sink or swim. You can sink or swim if you do that. Most of the time you sink if you loop. Now, on to the content, which people are actually here for, only at a mere 14 minutes into the actual damn review. The content itself, sexually implied to be the bone zone, it's quite varied. Different positions can move between the different characters, and they spend a good amount of time framing each shot. This was definitely well thought of. This wasn't just, here's a few scenes of the same position over and over. These were well thought, and they flowed naturally with each other. The progression itself is well done between each one. You can definitely tell they're having more and more fun as they continue through. Oh, and so is the girl. Girl along with it. The guy usually you can tell is having a certain amount of fun the entire time, but the girl actually does continue and progress further into having a better relationship and therefore better expressiveness of everything below the belt. And I gotta say, I give it an 8 out of 10 for what it has. It is vanilla and is only one girl, but it does it so goddamn well. Overall, if we're averaging the scores, this comes out to a solid 7 out of 10 overall. And I'd like to say, that is well worth a recommendation. I would like to say anything that is a 6 or above is a recommendation. A 6 doesn't necessarily pass, but it does have certain properties to it that I would recommend to a lot of other people. People such as a certain tag that people might like, a certain scene that I would hold high, even though the rest of it was garbage. But overall, 7 out of 10 is a damn good score. I would recommend it to people. It's not the personal best, but it is definitely something that you can pull up in the middle of the night if you're bored and you kind of need a quick release. Hell, if it's vanilla enough, you can show it to your girlfriend or boyfriend, whoever you're hanging out at the night. But until next time, I have been Dr. Doujinshi, and I will be back tomorrow in another video. Oh, so, just a quick reminder before I'm out. Thank you so much for 30 subs. That is 30 people who come here and just decide, hey, this is fucking worth it. I commend you, I thank you. Oh my god, I did not believe I'd be able to get this far, and I really want to go further. Because the human condition is all about more. So, thank you from the bottom of my heart. The bottom of my jizz-soaked, anime titty-covered heart. Thank you, and remember, wash your hands because, well, I mean, if you're watching a video about hentai, washing your hands afterwards is probably a good idea. Plus, current climate, it's also a good idea. And just don't be a dick to each other. You'll be a much happier person. Have a nice day. I have been the Doctor, and I'll see you all sometime soon. Bye, guys.